So Professor João was saying about how happy we are to receive you today, and he was explaining about your masters and your teachers and the studying you've been carrying on with us with João, and we are trying to. We've been studying the same texts here in Brazil, and we are very happy to receive you here.
Great, good. Okay, so we have a little bit of time together, and I'll speak a little bit and introduce the topic about the open mind and compassion, and then hopefully we can have some questions or discussion. Usually, certainly in English, the term mind indicates the content of our mind, our thoughts, feelings, memories, plans, and so on. And it's as if my mind is somehow the container of all my thoughts and feelings, and also the summation of them. It's how they are all added together. And these thoughts and feelings are relational. They link me out to the events in my life, to the people I know, the work I do, and so on. And so sometimes our mood is happy, sometimes our mood is sad. We are creatures of circumstance. We are creatures, we are beings of circumstance, dependent on circumstance. When we get up in the morning, we don't know what's going to happen in the day. Life happens to us, and then we process it and try to understand it. The event arises before the concept. We're always, as it were, catching up with the experience of the phenomenal presence of our life. Our mind is, our conceptual understanding is always coming after the arrival of the phenomena of our existence. And that keeps us very busy. So much is happening and life is so complicated. There's always something to think about, to worry about, to hope about. The Buddhist view is rather different, particularly in the school of Dzogchen, which means the great completion or great perfection. This very busy experience of the contents of our mind is seen as like looking at a waterfall. There's nothing solid in the waterfall, it's just water flowing by. But you can't see it through it, so it's like a wall. And this wall or seeming solidity of the events arising and passing in our mind, this cascade of whatever is arising as our experience makes it difficult for us to come close to the mind itself. It's as if when we go out and look in a field, we see the grass, we see the wild flowers and so on. So much is growing that it covers the earth. And if we're always there in the busy growing time of the summer, it's as if these things are just growing by themselves. The flowers and the grass is what is there. And we don't see the earth, the ground which is underneath. This creates a split or a separation. We don't see the source or the ground or the causal field out of which experience is arising. Well, the function of our sitting meditation practice is to give us a chance to relax out of our identification with the content of the mind, so that the open simplicity of the mind becomes more apparent for us. Of course, given that we live in our sense of personal identity, that we believe that we exist as an individual person, that we have to take responsibility for our own lives, it's difficult for us to see that this positioning, this belief or this interpretation is generated by factors. It's not self-existing. For example, I can say, well, I'm just James. I'm born in Scotland. I'm a man. I do many different things. This is me. This seems self-evident. because we are used to mediating or cooking our experience through language, culture, and the circumstances of our family, work, and so on. We're looking through the lenses of these conceptual formations, which means there's always something going on. Indeed, my sense of my own individual identity is a way of taking hold of the process of the unfolding of my experience and molding out of it a sense of my continuing existence. That is to say, the root of my identity from the Buddhist point of view is an idea, the idea of I, me, myself. I exist as this, and can add so many details onto how I exist. But this is a proposition. Its truth depends on our belief in it. So the function of meditation is not to create some new kind of identity, not to be busy making a better version of ourselves, but rather to give us a holiday from the endless burden of self-creation. Now, we might have an anxiety, well, if I don't maintain the ongoing work of myself, maybe I'll go mad, or maybe I won't know who I am. So if I stop the work of maintaining this sense of who I am, I might have a fear that I will unravel, I will lose my shape, as if my identity is like a garden. And if I don't do the watering and the weeding every day, it's going to become a chaotic mess. But what we actually find when we relax out of identification with the arising and passing phenomena in the mind, we find there is more space, a lucid, shining space, a space of connectivity with everything around us. And the reason it's bright and shining is that the thoughts and memories and ingredients out of which we were constructing our sense of self were actually functioning as a veil, as an obscuration. That at the root of our existence is an awareness which is intrinsically bright. It doesn't have to be polished. All we have to do is allow ourselves to open, to be present with how it is. So we're here on it. Then we're at the transition point between how it seems to me, the familiar interpretation that I bring to the stream of my experience, and how it actually is, how it is revealed when I stop interfering. Oh. When we start in the meditation practice, we tend to move from one side to the other. Our ego, individual sense of self, likes to keep busy because it's thinking and doing itself into existence. It's a bit like if you look at a river and sometimes moving on the surface, you see little swirls of water. The water turning around because it's passing over some stones or something is just water. It's not different from the rest of the water in the river. But when we look at it, we apprehend a shape. And on the basis of that, we say, oh, it's a whirlpool. So when we have this concept of whirlpool, we think, oh, something is there. But it's just water. Nothing fundamental has happened to the water. And yet, because of this pattern, it appears now that there is something else in existence, a whirlpool. Well, this is like the ego, that we are living in the stream of experience. We see, we hear, we taste, we smell, and so on. What is seemingly outside of ourselves arises as our experience of the world. And what is seemingly inside us is as our worlds. the inside my skin appears to be myself. Outer experience and inner experience is just experience. But on the basis of the concept of I am on the inside of this skin bag and the world is on the outside, it appears as if there is a real division. And because of that, I have a territory which I have to protect, which means getting more of the good things and less of the bad things. So this individualization from the point of view of Buddhism is a fabrication. It's an endless work of self-construction. So clearly we, from this point of view, our open mind, the open awareness, which takes in everything all at once, which we all have, which is operating all the time, not as something mystical, but just the field of our lived experience, is made invisible to us, our own patient, with our limited self-identity. But the materials of my individual self are niched, are situated inside this open field of experience. The separation is a conceptual event, not an existential one. Just as with the water swirling in the middle of the river, it's completely an aspect of the river, but the application of the concept of whirlpool seems to set it apart, make it different. So maybe we can see from this how when we practice with this relaxing into open awareness, we don't need to change the formation of our daily life. We don't need to change our food or clothes, our occupation. All that happens is that we start to be aware that all the finite entities, all the particularities of experience are always already within the inclusivity of the open mind. Of course, this has a major implication for compassion, because if what I call you is an experience that I have, and what I call me is an experience I have, then both you and I are my experience. And in the directness, the immediacy of lived experience, that's how it is. So in the directness or the immediacy of lived experience, of our inhabited experience, that's how it is. So then it's not a great thing to be for other people, because the other and the self are both both modes of experience. So the more we open to the ground of our own being, we see that the patterns of separation and duality and polarities are constructs of the mind. These are mental interpretations which have no real truth in themselves. They are conventional identifications. And, in every country there is racism, there's prejudice about sexual orientation and so on. When people live inside their prejudice, they believe that this is the truth, which sets one group of people against another. One group claim to be normal and declare that the other kind of classes of people are abnormal. But when we see directly, not as a concept, but when we see directly, all of life is arising from the same ground, then inclusion is the basis of existence, not something that we have to artificially impose from the outside. So for me, the great advantage of this approach is that it reduces the tendency to be judgmental. that it helps me not to arrive with my concepts before the event, but rather to be in a naked exposure to life as it reveals itself moment by moment, so that what we can then respond directly into the situation. In order to do this, we have to trust that what will be required will come to mind. And the main block to this is our anxiety and our solidified formulation of ourself. Through the practice, we can become more relaxed and spontaneous and connected and available. And in our present time, there is a lot of prejudice in political parties and governments. When people get power, they want to protect their friends and the people they think are like them, and be more harsh and controlling towards the people they think are not like them. This, of course, activates many, many kinds of thoughts and feelings. Increasing the pride of those who think they are victorious, and the sadness and irritation and anger of those who feel that they have been cast into the role of victim. And this, of course, leads to conflicts. The more society split, the more money goes to the police and the army to protect the elite. And then, because we tend to build our identity on the basis of history, family history, group histories, and so on, we tend to remember what your kind of person has done to my kind of person. Oh. One of the benefits of practicing Dzogchen is that it eases our energy out of these constricted patterns of conflictual thought, so that we can relate in a warm, relaxed way with whoever we meet. Oh, this is a very general introduction to Dzogchen thinking. But let's see if there are any questions or thoughts you have about what I've been saying.
Thank you very much. I wanted to ask you how to begin practicing Dzogchen, which and if you think, because I'm practicing, I've been practicing meditation for 2 years, like half an hour every day, and I am very anxious, very, very anxious, and I have a tendency to have negative thoughts.
Okay.
And I wanted to ask you if you think it is necessary to have an upgrade. Do you think it is necessary a full immersion, like for, I don't know, going away from my life and leaving everything and staying in a community? I don't know, because I really, I understand the benefit. I feel better when I meditate and everything, but I really, I'm still anxious and still negative oriented.
Okay. Okay. Some level of anxiety is just part of being alive in this world.
Yeah.
We don't know what will happen tomorrow. So the thing is that we tend to have a hope for a stable sense of self, but we live in a world of impermanence. The weather changes, the politics changes, the economy changes. As the sun moves across the sky, the seasons change. And so on the same level, our body is also changing. When we get up in the morning, we don't know what thoughts we'll have in the day, or what feelings, or what sensation in our body. So often anxious feelings become increased because we have a fantasy that we should be in control.
Então a ansiedade geralmente surge quando a gente tem a fantasia de ter que estar no controle.
That we're operating in a polarity of in control or out of control. And because it's impossible to really be in control, we can end up feeling a bit out of control all the time. And that feeds into negative thoughts of, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. I never get things right. I should try harder. So from the point of view of Dzogchen, we have these two aspects. We have this infinite space of the mind, the ground out of which and through which all experience is arising. This ground never changes. This is the ground of our being. But arising from it and passing through it are all the thoughts, feelings, and external experiences that we have. Experience is always moving and changing, but the ground or the basis of this experience is not changing. When this is not clear for us, we insert into the middle the notion of our personal identity, as if I could be stable and calm and predictable. And maybe if you move out of the city to a quiet retreat place and eat the same rice and vegetables every day and don't talk too much, you could feel more calm, but you wouldn't be much use to anyone. If you want to help other people, you have to be able to talk and relate. If your friend tells you that their child has been in an accident, you get upset. This is part of our compassion or our love or our empathic attunement. We relate to people through our capacity for movement. Connectivity with others involves the movement of our body, our voice, and our mind. So from the Dzogchen point of view, the key thing is to not focus so much on the content of your mind, on the kind of thoughts that you have, and not worry about trying to improve your thoughts, but rather just watch them as they move through your mind. Thoughts don't last very long. They come and gone in a couple of seconds, but they can make us feel as if we're being beaten up. The boxer doesn't usually land just one punch. They keep punching. So you have many negative thoughts coming, bam, bam, bam. So the negative thought must be getting to you. You are persecuted by your own thoughts. This is like having a new puppy that keeps pissing on the floor. You have to teach the puppy to have a piss when you go out for a walk with it. So that means to not have the dog inside your house. That you're separating the dog out. So it's like seeing, I have a thought, which actually means this thought is arising for me. When the thought arises for me, if I say it's my thought and it's telling me the truth about me, I'm now being oppressed and imprisoned by my own thought. It is a thought. We don't need to get rid of it. What we can do is look at what is my attachment to that thought. The thought is passing through the mind, but I feel, oh, this thought is about me. My thoughts tell me the truth about who I am. They disturb me because I believe they are true. So from the point of view of Dzogchen, if if you say you come in at the end of the day, you can have a shower, put on a little bit of music and dance a little just to loosen up your body. And then sit in a very open, relaxed way. Whatever is arising, let it arise and pass through. Don't try to hold on to the thoughts you like and get rid of the thoughts you don't like. The Buddha said many, many times, all phenomena are impermanent. So when we see this about our own mind, we see thoughts go free by themselves. Say I have a difficult thought, I hate myself, I'm stupid, I wasted my life. The thought itself is vanishing. The impact of the thought comes from my attachment to it. I am gluing my identity onto the thought. So when we relax and we just allow the thought to be there, it comes and goes. When we try to get rid of negative thoughts and push them away, this force of rejection is also a kind of involvement. We're taking the thought seriously. And then because it becomes important, it has power over us. So I would suggest that you don't need to change your life on an external level, but you just see, oh, this is a flavor. So with the spirit of equanimity, you can go in the kitchen, you taste a little salt. Oh, this is the taste of salt. Taste a little sugar. Oh, this is sweet. This is the taste of sugar. Then you try chili, then you try coffee. There are many, many flavors. Each of them has an impact on your tongue and whether you want more or less. They are experiences, but they don't define you. So your problem is the problem of attachment, that you are believing that the thoughts that arise in your mind tell you the truth about yourself. But the Buddha says from the very beginning, your mind itself, your pure awareness is not contaminated and not defiled by anything. Many thoughts and feelings and memories are arising and passing through. Your mind is, if this is just an image, it's not the truth, but just as a metaphor, it's as if your mind is a glass tube. Moment by moment, many different things are flowing down this tube, some of them beautiful, some of them ugly. But even after hours of pouring, the glass tube is still clean. It's just been passing through it. If we don't see the tube, we only see the content. And then we think, oh, this is me, this is terrible. But when we recognize, oh, I'm like this transparent glass tube, whether sweet things, good things are flowing, or bad things, sour things, it's just passing through. Then we really live our equanimity. And the various flavors of life become part of the richness of our experience. Does what I'm saying make sense to you? Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so you can maybe try it for a while and see how you get on, and you can always contact me.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Anything else somebody would like to say?
A lot of people.
Professor, we have a question from João Carlos Leitão. Here's what he asks. What is Professor's opinion on how the non-imputation vision has been taught through Mac mindfulness throughout the world as a tool of the ego and not as a method of vision of ultimate compassion? Mac mindfulness.
Yes, I understand. I think this is a tragedy, but it's just an aspect of the capitalist consumerist commodification process. In the traditional texts about Tantra, you will often read that they say the behaviors and the things which imprison sentient beings can liberate the yogi. But now we have the opposite. the Dharma teachings, which could liberate people, are turned into new patterns of confusion and limitation. So I think this is what happens with technique. When the technique is separated from the view, when there is no understanding of emptiness, no understanding of how the mind actually is, mindfulness becomes a way of self-regulating. Nowadays, with mobile phones, people are arranging their lives all the time. Life management becomes the way in which the isolated ego of our current cultural formations maintains itself. So this each of us is condemned to self-management in our individuality. As the market gives us more and more choices, we have to decide for ourselves. So I become more lonely, more individual, more separated. And the mindfulness of this Jon Kabat-Zinn style leads often to this sense of isolation. It's all up to me. It's my responsibility to manage my own mind. Whereas traditionally the word for mindfulness in Tibetan is dremba. It has three main meanings. One is memory, to remember something. Secondly, to be careful, like your mother would say when you're young, hey, take care, don't fall over the steps. And in Dzogchen, it means not to get lost in the particulars. That is to say, mindfulness in Dzogchen means to relax into spacious awareness, because our mind is self-luminous. And so everything is bright and clear and can function spontaneously if we relax. But if mindfulness simply becomes another thing that you have to do, then it becomes another burden. And I don't think it's very helpful.
Okay. John is saying that here in Brazil nowadays, there are many people that feels bad about political questions regarding Amazonia, the indigenous people, tribes, and in the government, relating to how the government leads things. And people are very sad here in Brazil. There is an expression that they're using. They're sick from Brazil, Brazil sickness, that is very common.
Okay.
Sometimes
it's difficult to see the open
presence
when the suffer is so intense, and now a lot of people are suffering. It's difficult to talk about, oh, you have this quality of this quality, it's present. Pedro.
Okay, I think if you're interested in politics, if you want to become active, then it's useful to train the way a dancer would train. Not, especially if you're doing a ballet or a modern dance, modern ballet. The most important thing first is the line of gravity, because if you know how to center yourself, then you won't fall over. You can extend yourself, you can leap, but you have a sense of how you stand in relation to the ground. So however you're moving, you know where the center is. So I think with just a little bit of meditation practice, to really live with the sense of everything is moving in space. Everything is energy moving in different patterns. You can move with circumstances. You can be responsive and flexible. Like water, if water is flowing down a hill and it comes to a barrier, it will flow around the barrier. So in the same way, if you're going to be protesting against things and the opposition has maybe soldiers or army or violent people, if you go into a face-to-face confrontation, you're likely to get hurt and then to become very angry and hopeless. So it's very important not to shrink inside, not to become small. But by being relaxed and open, you have the optimal access to your own potential. And in particular, it's very important to, in the meditation, to include all the narrow-minded, brutal, and persecutory people. All sentient beings have Buddha nature. When we look at ourselves, we know how easy it is to get lost. These people, the angry farmers who want to cut down the trees and chase out the indigenous people, they are just lost in their ordinary worldly concerns. The farmer wants to give his daughter a good marriage ceremony. Well, if he cuts down some trees and sells the wood, then he has money for a nice festival. What we see is somebody operating inside a very small frame of reference. Everything they do is quite logical inside that narrow frame. And we probably know ourselves how we have got lost in narrow frames. So I think it's very important to again and again relax out of the narrow frame of reference and become inclusive. That is to say, may all sentient beings be happy. May the selfish people be happy. May the cruel people be happy. May they all awaken to their own infinite potential. Because when people are abusing the environment and exploiting other people, they always have a strongly dualistic point of view. Me first. What's important to me is more important than your interests. So unless we want to simply take up a similar position and say, no, my value system is better than yours, we want to open our minds so that we can see the rationale for all the various points of view, to see that they arise from lack of awareness. And therefore, we have to develop our awareness, our capacity for connectivity. And through that, try to find some pathways of genuine communication. It may well be that from our frame of reference, what these people do is bad and unhelpful. And from that position, it's easy to say, these people do bad things, therefore they are bad people. As if inside them there was some true essence of badness. But from the general Buddhist point of view, everything negative arises from ignorance of the open ground. So if we want to avoid just becoming a kind of parallel limited system, we have to relax out of judgment and bias and blaming, and try to bring together both wisdom and compassion in ourselves. Wisdom lets us see the structure of the mistakes that are being made and may help us to find some good solution. And compassion helps us to stop stigmatizing or over-defining some people as bad and others as good. Of course, this is difficult. It's so much quicker and easier to say, these are terrible people and they're destroying the world and I hate them and we have to stop them doing what they do. But they are already hostile. And if I am hostile to the hostile, then, and there are more of them and they have the guns, then it's not going to be helpful. It's not about giving in, but about being skillful, which can involve activating the media, doing nonviolent protests, and in particular, educating people about the nature of time. When the forest is attacked, it is the future which is attacked, the future of the children of all the people. So people are saying, I don't care about the future, it's only this moment, it's only my family, only me. So there we see how easily the mind limits itself and forgets the wider picture, the infinite spaciousness of experience. Well, there is no easy answer, but I think if we are grounded, we can also be expansive.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe time for one more comment or question.
João Carlos Leitão is asking, is there a difference in outcome in how Dzogchen is passed in other traditions and how it is passed in Buddhism tradition? I say there's an emphasis by some masters in training bodhicitta and non-dual vision at the same time. My experience is that the bodhicitta's mind naturally springs from training through the illusion of separateness. Thus, I see no difference in outcome between the two forms of teaching, but I am just a few minutes a day practitioner. I would like to know what you think of this view.
So, all the Buddhist schools agree that the key problem is that we experience ourselves as limited individuals, that I have an individual essence which defines me as me, and this keeps me absolutely different from other people, not just other kinds of humans, but birds and fish and so on. And the basic problem is the separation of ourselves from everything which is all around us. So in the Mahayana tradition, we keep reflecting that all beings have been our mother in a previous life. We begin the practice by vowing to save all sentient beings. While practicing, we include all sentient beings with us, and at the end, we dedicate the merit to all beings. That is to say, we are struggling to leave the prison of our exclusive ego by opening to an inclusive, welcoming attitude which will allow us to be part of everything which is occurring. So in Dzogchen, we do this more directly. When we simply sit and relax, we release all our identification with the mental factors which seemingly create a barrier between ourselves and what's around us. So that we see that the energy of the mind is itself bodhicitta, that the wisdom of emptiness and the skillful means of compassion are intrinsic. That is to say, they are how the mind is when it's left alone. But when we're in our busy, ego-focused existence, our activity creates a turbulence which makes it difficult to see what's going on. So, in the Nyingmapa system, which I trained in, we do all the different kinds of practice at the same time, because there's no contradiction between all the flavors of Dharma. So we can include conscious thoughts of all sentient beings in the 6 realms, and at the same time see this as the arising and passing of illusory forms in the mind. From the very beginning, everything is like an illusion, like a rainbow in the sky. But in our limited embodiment, we have hopes and fears. And this positions us in particular contexts with particular opinions. This idea of my individual self positions me in a particular way in my culture, economy, and so on. But rather than using the concept of everyone having Buddha nature, or everyone having been my mother in a previous life. By relaxing into open awareness, which is non-conceptual. Non-conceptual here doesn't mean that there are no thoughts arising in the mind, but rather that my sense of presence is not constructed out of concepts. And in that relaxed, open state, energy flows freely in all directions. And this is non-dual compassion. But of course, we have to do the practice quite some time before it makes sense. Otherwise, it's just words. So now we come to the end. It's very nice talking with you, and I hope this is useful in some way.
Thank you, James.
Pleasure. Okay, bye for now.
Thank you, James. Thank you very much.